Hello everybody, welcome to my channel, Film-A-Tic, pop, 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 where we discuss everything from movies, television, music videos, reaction videos, anything your heart desires. So grab your popcorn, candy, and drink, and let's get into one of my favorite films. One of my favorite films of all time, Tales from the Hood. Man, when I tell you guys, when I rewatch this movie, it is so relevant. It is so important to what is going on today, and we are gonna get into it. So let's get into it. Tales from the Hood was written by Rusty Cundiff and Darren Scott, and it was directed by Rusty Cundiff, a brilliant writer, director, actor. If you don't know who he is, he also starred in the movie Sprung. There's been documentaries made about him, but to me, this is one of my favorite projects from him because it encompasses everything that is going on now, what has been going on within the past couple of years, and how we still feel about a lot of the events that are taking place. So let me go ahead and get into the story. So it starts with three guys pulling up to a funeral home, Bulldog, Ball, and Stack. And when I tell you their interaction was hilarious, Bulldog was clearly the leader of the group. So they're going to the funeral home to get some drugs, as he said, the shit. They went to the funeral home to get the drugs that they heard were there. So they pull up, they smoking weed, the way they was talking to each other. I said, is this how we talk to each other? But yes, it was hilarious.
It does look evil as hell.
So they go up to the funeral home, and you know, Stack, he don't want to go in. He's scared, all right? He sees a funeral home. He clearly does not like horror movies, so he's scared. So Bulldog is like, man, you see a dead mother, then you shoot his. So Stack was like, hold up, Bulldog. If he dead, how we gonna kill him? So Bulldog was like, what? If he dead, how we gonna kill him? So Ball was like, yeah, you know, that's like refried beans. Would you refry some beans while you just, you know, cook it, and there you go. And I was like, hold up, he got a point. This is what I'm talking about with weed heads. With weed heads, they be saying the most random stuff, but it be true. And you like, he right. But anyway, Bulldog is like, look, you shouldn't be scared of no ghosts. Who you need to be scared of is, I don't know who it was, but it was a major drug dealer. So I'm sure he's over all of that. So they ring the doorbell, and the visor rolls up, and then we are introduced to Mr. Sims. All right, Mr. Sims is creepy as hell. I'm not gonna lie. He opened the door. I've been waiting for you boys. I was like, I would have left, okay? Once my spirit gets agitated, I'm gone. They go in there, and you know, Bulldog's like, where's the shit? Where's the shit? And he's like, the shit? You know, I'm just a mortician. And he's like, oh, the drugs. So he's like, I found a whole bunch of them in the alleyway. Now, mind you, I'm like, y'all don't think this is rather odd, but I digress. I've never been in a drug dealing situation, so I don't know, you know, the customs. So Mr. Sims walks along with them as they're supposedly going to where the drugs are. They stop at a casket, and Ball is like, what happened to him? And Mr. Sims starts telling them the story. So now we are going into the story about police brutality, okay? So I want you guys to really listen to this, and we're gonna make connections on what we've been seeing versus what was told in this story, okay? All right, so the first story is really talking about Clarence and police brutality. So we first get introduced to Clarence in the casket, and all you hear is Clarence, Clarence. So you see a young African-American man, he's in a car with this white man, and they're both cops. Now we come to find out that Clarence is a rookie cop. He's new on the job. So Clarence sees in the car that they have pulled over a gentleman, and he is a councilman. So the gentleman who they pulled over was Martin Morehouse, and Martin Morehouse was a councilman. He was also an activist. He was heavy in the community, and he spoke a lot about the injustice African Americans were going through. So they pulled him over, and they are abusing him essentially. So Clarence gets out the car, and he's like, hey, do y'all know who this is, basically? And they basically tell him, hey, you need to be quiet, you need to get back, and you don't want what we're gonna end up giving. So they end up abusing Martin Morehouse, putting him in the car, injecting him with drugs, and pushing his car over a bridge, if you will. So Clarence is haunted by this because he knows exactly what happens. So Clarence inevitably quits the force, but he becomes an alcoholic. He looks a hot mess. He is clearly plagued by the events that occurred to Martin Morehouse. So he starts hearing voices, something telling him to bring those cops to Martin Morehouse's grave. So that's exactly what he does. He calls the cops, and they meet at a cemetery. So when they get there, they like, hey buddy, what's going on? What's up, buddy? How are you, guy? And he's like, hey, what's up? And he was like, one of the guys, he said, yeah, we missed you. And he was like, you should have reached out and touched the brother. I was done. So he basically confronts them and says he was an innocent man that y'all killed. And they were like, well, if we go down, you go down because you was there. That same tactic, the same old tactic. So he was like, look, we need to go pay our respects. So one of the cops was like, all right, if we pay our respects, are you going to be done with this? Is this deaded? And he was like, sure, cool. So they go to the grave, but one of the cops was like, he's not going to come back. So they planned on killing Clarence because, of course, Clarence was there. He knew all about it. And basically, they felt he was on the verge of talking to somebody about the actual events. So they go to the grave. Clarence walks up to the headstone, and he's like, I brought them for you. Are you happy now? So they're like, what are you talking about? Are you talking to the headstone? Like, what are you doing? So one of the cops, his ignorant ass, decides he wants to walk up there and pee on this man's grave. Just on that alone, you got a special place in hell. When you piss on somebody's grave, they're dead. What you doing? So he pisses on his grave. Then I don't want to say forces, he bullied someone else into, another one of the cops, into pissing on his grave as well. So it starts storming, and out of nowhere, when the second dude decides he wants to pull out his Johnson, his Peter Whacker, his little peen, his little stick, and do what he needed to do, release himself, a hand comes up, grabs him, and then starts banging him on the headstone, right? So at this point, they better than me. I would have took off running. I'm not staying. I'm not screaming. You're not going to see me. Call me road runner. I'm off. So after that, the headstone blows up, and you see that Martin Morehouse corpse is alive, and he's holding the heartbeat. He's like, boop, 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 boop. And you hear it, and he's just standing there, and he's like, you. And yeah, I love this movie. I'm sorry. So they take off running. Clarence kind of goes to the side because he's like, damn, this is crazy. So Martin Morehouse starts following the cops, but he's a corpse, so I'm sure he has like little magical skills and stuff because he's able to keep up with them and everything. So while they're driving in the car, they freaking out. So one of the cops, he's like, he gets the microphone from the car, like he about to call it in, and he's like, what are we supposed to tell them? That the corpse of a dead citizen we murdered is come back to life? Get in your head. And I was like, well, I mean, he has a point. How are you gonna call it in? You can't call it in. So while they're driving in the car, Martin Morehouse like his hand rams into the top of the car, and then he pulls the other guy out and he cuts off his head, or I don't know, he pulls his head off. So he's standing on the he's standing on the top of the car with the head just like this, just dangling. It's dangling, guys. I'm serious. So the other cop is freaking out. He starts shooting at the car. He's shooting, and then the car explodes. It explodes. Yeah. So he thinks he's good. So he goes into this alleyway and he sees this big mural of Martin Morehouse. And he's like, I killed him! I killed him! You know, that type of thing. And he does that. And as he's walking, you know, he's bumping into people, everybody looking at him crazy, and Martin Morehouse's corpse is right there, and he pulls up all these needles, and he uses his powers to pull it up, and then he turns it like this, and then the needles go all in that man's body, and then he's pushed up against the mural, and then one of the needles hits him in his mouth, and then his whole body sinks into the mural. Yeah. So after that, Clarence is talking to Martin Morehouse's corpse, and he's like, "Are you happy now, brother?" And he grabs him, and he's like, "Where were you when I needed you, brother?" And the last we saw was Clarence in a mental institution / prison because he went down for killing all of those cops. Yeah. All right, so with all of my enthusiasm and everything that, you know, all the animation and everything, let's really get into the grit of the conversation when it comes to Clarence and what happened with Martin Morehouse and those 3 cops. Of course, it's obvious that the conversation was surrounding police brutality. That's a given. Over the years, even going back centuries, we have had tension between the police, and it stems back to Jim Crow, and even before then in slavery. We have issues with the police and authority and them thinking that they're better than us and can do certain things and get away with it because they are quote unquote the law. So that I don't think needs to be explained. I can go further into detail with that in another video, but I do want to circle the conversation around Clarence archetype within our community. Clarence is the guy who looks and sees but doesn't really do anything. He knows that the actions are wrong, but he's too fearful to do anything or say anything. Now, I will say that I felt Clarence's punishment was unfair. And hear me out, and please give me a different perspective in the comment section if you feel otherwise. I think Clarence's punishment was unfair because he was young, he was a rookie, and he was scared. He got in this industry thinking that he was going to help and serve and protect, but ended up being a part of a corrupt group that was doing so many different things against the serve and protect. They were corruption at its finest. So for him, a young cop coming in, he don't know what to do. He sees all of this going on, and his comrades, his colleagues are telling him, you better be quiet or else. What do you do? And I always say with life, there's choices that we have, consequences that come with the choices that we have. But in this case, is it fair to label him a villain when he was plagued, he was perturbed, he ended up quitting the force after that because he felt so guilty about what had occurred. He understood what happened, but he didn't know what to do. And I'm not giving Clarence an out, but I'm just looking at it from his respective lens. So when Martin Morehouse's corpse grabbed his neck and said, where were you when I needed you, brother? Maybe he meant, you know, after all the dust had settled, maybe he could have went in and told somebody, or he could have did something, but then what was that going to guarantee? Anything. They may have ended up killing him. They may have then lied on him because it would have been 3 against 1 and said he was the one who killed Martin Morehouse, or that he was crazy, or no one believed him. So it would have been interesting to see what is something else that he could have done in that scenario, being, again, a young black male cop, a rookie cop, in a very disgusting and unfortunate situation. So, of course, that particular section was about police brutality. But I do think we have to look at Clarence's character and look at it from a different lens. Because when I was watching it, all I remember thinking was, is this fair? Is this right? I know what happened to Martin Morehouse was unfair, of course. I know it was wrong. He died because of racism, because of injustice, because of a whole bunch of things. But Clarence, did he really deserve the punishment he got? And that's the question I have for you guys. So let me know in the comment section what you think. So at this point, the story is over. They're back at the funeral home with Mr. Sims. There's Bulldog, Stacks, and Ball. So, you know, Stacks is like, man, can we go now? Like, he does not want to be there, okay? Ball is like, he's more so interested in everything, and Bulldog is just listening along the way, and he's like, the pigs got what they deserved, because back then, especially in the 90s, 80s, they were calling the police pigs, so that was normal rhetoric at that time. So they go to the next story, and the story was surrounding a young man who was blurring the lines of reality versus dream. Reality versus nightmare. And I loved how this story was constructed, because at this point we meet Walter, and Walter is in his room. It's dark, you know, and he has the covers on, like he's about to go to bed, and a noise comes up, and you can see the fear in Walter's eyes. So whoever it is trying to get into Walter's room, and it looks like a figure, but we don't know exactly what it is. So Walter attends a new school, and the teacher is introduces Walter. You know, poor Walter, he just went through on his first day, he got into a fight. I mean, poor Walter was going through. So after Walter gets into an altercation with another young man, he's sent to the nurse. And when he goes to the nurse's office, the nurse notices that he has a bruise on his face, a black eye. But she knows that that wasn't from the fight. It's a few weeks old. So the teacher asks Walter, you know, hey, is there something you need to tell me? Did the kid who fought you, did he do this? And all Walter says was, it was the monster. And he keeps referencing this monster. So of course adults are gonna think, okay, he's just being a kid, he's not living in reality. But Walter wasn't fully articulating exactly what was going on. Now, he wasn't wrong, but the way he was articulating it was in the form of a child. So Walter says, he told me you wouldn't believe me. And he walks off. The next day, Walter comes back to school, and it seems like over time, Walter would come back to school with bruises, broken arms. Now, as someone who worked in the school system, if we see any form of a bruise that we know the kid didn't get from school, we're supposed to call CPS. But of course, that is the regulations now. I don't know if that was the regulations during that time. So Walter, finally, he's drawing a picture of the kid who he got into a fight with, and he ends up balling up the paper, and you can hear the kid, his bones are breaking, and he's screaming. So when the teacher goes down to see what happened, the janitor tells him the kid was just playing and he just collapsed, and he was like, he must have had weak knees. And I'm like, sir, for him to have that many broken bones, I think it's more than weak knees. But I digress. So as the story continues, the teacher starts to get concerned, so he goes to Walter's home. When he goes to the home, the mother opens the door. So when the teacher goes to the door is opened by Walter's mom, Sissy, played by Paula J. White, and she did such a phenomenal job in this movie. Anyway, so she opens the door, and I'm not gonna lie, mama had a little Jezebel spirit. She was trying to catch her a man. I'm like, for somebody who's supposed to be abused, you show is flirting quite hard. But either way, the teacher goes in and he lets her know that Walter has been talking about this monster and he's concerned. So Sissy, played by Paula, she calls Walter downstairs, and she's like, hey, why are you telling all of these stories? Didn't I tell you you weren't supposed to be telling these stories? So a knock comes at the door, and the door is open, and the gentleman walks in, and he has a very disturbing / disgusting look on his face. Like, he was disgusted. He was trying to figure out why this man was in his house. So she introduces him as Walter's teacher, and he then tells the guy that, hey, Walter's been having issues with school. He's mentioning this monster as if he wants to kill the monster. So the guy, he looks up and he looks pissed, and he's like, I will handle it. So he tells the mom to get the teacher's code and basically send him off. So when the teacher is in the car, which I'm just like, sir, you should have read a room. Anybody could tell the mom did not want the father to know that information, and there was probably a reason as to why. But he still continued to say it. So when he got in the car, he heard screaming and broken glass and things happening, which kind of emphasizes, oh man, this man is abusing them. So the teacher goes into the house and he tries to fight the stepdad, the boyfriend. We don't know exactly what his role was in the home, but he was in the home, and he gets the brakes beat off him. Okay, he gets the brakes beat off of him. So Walter comes downstairs, and in the midst of the teacher getting beat, his mama getting beat, I mean, he beat the mama like she was a whole man. Okay, it was really bad. Walter gets his paper where he's drawn a picture of the monster, and he starts folding it. So as he's folding it, what he's doing to the paper is happening to the quote unquote monster, and he ends up being squished on the floor. And when he's squished on the floor, he's like, this ain't over, bitch. And of course it is over, because then Walter, pushes the paper with his foot, and then he puts it in a pan and he burns up. And that is what happened to the stepfather or boyfriend or whoever he was. And basically the mom was like, what are we going to say? No one's going to believe us. And the teacher was like, no one has to know. And that was how the monster was destroyed. And honestly, from that segment, I understand that it was talking about reality versus nightmare, and what's real versus what is not, and how it all boils down to perception. But for me, I think that there's a deeper conversation that needs to be had about when kids tell parents certain things. Like, I understand that Walter was naming it as a monster. And when he said monster, it's like the adults automatically dismissed what he was saying. Now, I'm not saying if your child says that there's a troll in his room, you automatically jump on it and believe it. But I do think that we need to take what kids say a little bit more seriously, because they don't see from the same lens that we see. So while we may think something is ridiculous, they could be communicating, but they're just communicating from their lens. From Walter's lens, the stepfather, boyfriend, whoever, was the monster, and the monster was abusing him and his mother. So instead of him saying, my stepfather is abusing me, he called him the monster. So I just think it's a reminder for us not to be so dismissive to kids when they say certain things. I understand it was talking about perception, but let's look at the perception from a child's perspective. That's all I'm saying. This next story I thought was very interesting, okay? So when we're back at the funeral home with Mr. Sims, Bulldog, Stacks, and Ball. And as they're walking through, a doll falls. And it looked like the doll of a young man. And one of the gentlemen, they were like, so ghosts play with dolls now, huh? And Mr. Sims explained to them that the doll is a conduit, basically a way station for souls to run through until they're able to get home. So we're told the story of Duke. Duke is running for councilman, and he is a very open racist. It is clear as day this man is racist, and what adds insult to injury is this man has moved into a plantation where slaves were massacred, and he is not taking that seriously at all. What adds even more insult to injury is that his biracial help person, the person who's helping him run his campaign, his publicist, if you will, he is making jokes about it as well. So this is a half black man who is the publicist for Duke, who is a openly racist white man, and he's making jokes about the massacre that occurred within the plantation that he's choosing to live in, might I add you. So we enter in this story where we see a commercial of Duke talking about affirmative action, and I'm gonna put in the video just a brief synopsis of what affirmative action is. Anyway, so you can see there's protesters outside of the plantation. They're telling him they don't want him to be there. He needs to leave the home. This older man is he's kind of irate with it. He's telling Duke, you need to leave. The ghosts don't want you there. The dolls don't want you there. And he keeps referencing dolls. So, Duke's handler, his publicist, is like, why don't they want you here? What are they so upset about? So Duke goes into a story about how there was a slave owner who, because he was so upset that the slaves had been freed, he killed and hung all of the slaves, and their souls were never able to rest. So there was an older woman who lived in the home for a bit, but she ended up being murdered. But she sent all of those dolls, all of their spirits, into the dolls. So all of the murdered slaves, their spirits were sent into dolls. So the publicist asked, he was like, so did you ever find the dolls? And Duke said he looked everywhere and they could not find those dolls anywhere. And if he did find the dolls, they would have been worth some money for him to sell it. So he starts making jokes about, slaves and coons and, just racist rhetoric. And the publicist ends up dying. Like, something happens, he loses his footing, and then he falls down the stairs. So, Duke is upset and everything, and as he's walking out from the gentleman's funeral who slipped and fell, the guy who initially warned him about living in that house, he was like, you need to heed the warning. They didn't want him there, and they don't want you there, and you need to leave. So Duke didn't take it seriously. So he was like, me and the dolls are just going to have to get along. I'm like, sir, there's already been a death in this plantation, and you don't think you need to take this seriously. But that's just me. So from there, Duke goes back to the plantation, and he's rewatching the video of the gentleman when he slipped and fell, and he saw there was a doll that tripped him. So at this point, he knows that the story is real. So he goes to look at this big picture that's in his living room of the older slave lady with all of her dolls surrounding her. And one of the dolls is missing. Y'all, this doll knocks on the door and speeds right past Duke, because Duke doesn't think to look down and look for a doll. So when he gets in the house, the doll is sitting on the stairway like, yeah, mofo, we tried to tell you to leave. So Duke, at this point, he's freaking out. He goes to get his gun. He tries to shoot the doll like that's going to do anything. It's a doll. So he's shooting around. Then he finally does get a hold of the doll, and he shoots the doll in the head, and then he thinks he's won. When he goes back into the room where there's the mural, he sees that more dolls are gone from that painting. So I'm like, at this point, sir, if I was you, I would literally just jump out of the window and take off running. That's what I would do. But this fool stays into the house. Long story short, he starts getting eaten by dolls. He gets eaten by the slave dolls. Ask me if I feel bad for him. I don't. I don't at all. because he was warned. He thought it was a joke. He thought it was cute. He didn't heed the warning and how he didn't respect the dead and what those people went through, and he thought it was a joke. So do I feel bad for him? Absolutely not. I don't. So we move on to the last story. And to me, out of all of the stories, this was the most relevant, this was the most impactful, and this was the one that had me thinking deeply. And I'm going to tell you why at the end. So this was the story of Crazy K. So, of course, we're back at the funeral home with Mr. Sims, Bulldog, Ball, and Stack. And Ball, he goes into one of the funeral rooms and he sees Crazy K's body, and he's like, y'all, you won't believe this, homie. It's a trip, homie. So when they walk in and they see Crazy K's body, they start freaking out. So Mr. Sims was like, did you know him? And he was like, nah, he was just a guy we saw walking around. And he was like, that crazy gang madness. So we go into the story of Crazy K. Crazy K was riding around in his vehicle, blasting hip-hop music, talking about killing somebody. And he sees a guy named Tracy. So he makes a U-turn real quick. And he gets up to Tracy and he's like, yo, Tracy, you still talking that stuff? Where my money and all of this other stuff? And he point blank shoots Tracy and kills Tracy. So you see in that moment, everybody heard the gunshots and 3 dudes run out, and it's a gunfire. It's a gun show, basically. They're all shooting at each other. We see that Crazy K gets shot, and we see the shadows of 3 men, and they like, Crazy K, you crazy now, So what you gonna do now with your D, your nether regions, your peen, your Peter Whacker being blown off? And in the nick of time, the police show up. In the nick of time. So all Crazy K can say is saved by the mother effing police. Dang. Right? So we see Crazy K in prison. He's doing sit-ups that look very, very, very uncomfortable. So as Crazy K is doing his sit-ups, there's a beautiful black woman in a white suit. She just looks fabulous. She approaches Crazy K's cell and she asks him how would he like to be released. And at this point, he's in disbelief because he knows that he's going to be in prison for a while. She lets him know that if he agrees to participate in a rehabilitation program, then he can be out in no time. At that point, he thinks about it and he goes ahead and agrees. So at this point, Crazy K sees a whole bunch of hanging dead bodies. It's like 3 or 4 of them, and it kind of scares him a little bit. So they put him in a cell with a white power enthusiast, a very racist, what are they called? The White Brotherhood, the Aryan Brothers or whatever. He's a part of that whole thing. So this fool basically tries to recruit Crazy K to be a part of his army that is going to take over, and they will be the ultimate supremacy, and they'll have slaves again. But he said he will spare Crazy K, and Crazy K will be one of his minions and all that. Crazy K is disgusted and ends up punching him in the face. So the guy says something and he's like, oh Lord, I'm not gonna say the N-word, I refuse. He's like, yeah, N-word. He was like, how many have you killed? Basically, you're mad at me because I said I'm gonna kill your black brothers, but how many black brothers have you killed? And that was like, what can he say to that? Because you're knocking him for doing the very thing that you're doing. So when Crazy K gets out the cell, he lets the lady know, look, I didn't appreciate you putting me in the cell next to that dude, that racist dude. And she was like, I thought he was someone you should meet. So either you gonna get through this program or you can spend the rest of your life in solitary confinement because I think you're scum. So as they go down and they start prepping him for something, he starts seeing a whole bunch of videos of black men killing each other. Whether they're in groups, whether they're gangs, whether they're killing for a color. And they're doing the comparison of the KKK and how they used to use black bodies as entertainment, and they were spectators on when black bodies were being hung. It was very interesting and beautifully, masterfully done how Rusty Cundiff did this, because it draws the comparison of, we say that we don't like specific things in history, but we've adopted the very things that we swear we don't like. So you're saying you don't like the KKK, these white men who wear white sheets and go around killing black people, but yet y'all are wearing masks with the same holes in the eyes, holes in the mouth, and you're going around and killing black people. So who really wins? And we're going along with it. So you can hear Crazy K kind of screaming, because he's seeing all of these images of not just black men killing one another, but you also see white people indulging and enjoying the deaths of black people being hung and burned and killed. So how different are you? So the last thing after that, she puts him in some type of sensory room. I can't remember the exact name of it. And basically it's a dark room with a chair that he's sitting in, and sensors are showing. So think of little lights flashing. And what Crazy K was thinking about, or what was in his subconscious mind, was all the people who he killed, whether directly or indirectly. So when I say indirectly, it was a little girl, and she was basically like, I didn't do anything, I was just in my room playing. And he was like, how you know it was me? A name don't have no bullets. So first he started deflecting. Then he owned up to, you were just at the wrong place, you were at the wrong place at the wrong time. And then there were two other guys who came up and was like, hey, how you doing? I haven't seen you in a while. Oh yeah, because you killed me. And you know, all of these people, and it was a lot of people that this dude single-handedly killed. And he started playing the victim role. What about me? What about my nightmares? There wasn't no one there for me. And she was like, you decide who you want to be. You decide what you choose to do. Whose fault is it? Is it your mother's, your father's? And he said, yeah, it's all them mother efforts, and I don't care. If I killed you, I don't care. So at that point, it's like, so she tried. She was like, Jerome, you won't get another chance. You still have time to be saved. And he got up. He grabbed one of the women who worked at the facility, and he said, I don't give a F, I don't give a F, I don't give a F. And slowly, all of those bodies start disappearing. The lady who was over it in the white suit, she disappeared. And it went back to the scene where he was laying down, and there was those three gentlemen. Well, I don't want to call them gentlemen. Those three guys with the guns. And Crazy K was saying, I don't give a F. I don't give a F. I don't give a F. And they were like, then we don't give a F either. And they shot him. And then one of the guys said, one less in. And that's how that story ended. So we're at the funeral home, and Mr. Sims, he's like, yeah, you know, you can't rehabilitate those type of guys. So at this point, Bulldog is pissed. He's like, I'm tired of these ghost stories with you. You didn't let us know. You knew we was the ones who killed them. So Bulldog, Ball, and Stack were the ones who killed Crazy K. And so so Bulldog ends up pistol whipping Mr. Sims, and Mr. Sims takes them down to a room where there's caskets. There's 3 caskets. And he was like, where else would I hide the drugs? Where else would they be? In the casket. Makes sense to me. So they go up to the caskets, and they like, about time. This took too long. All of this other stuff. And they're still pointing a gun at Mr. Sims. So when they open it up, they see their dead bodies in the casket. Y'all, my mind was blown. Oh my God, my mind was blown when I watched this movie. So Mr. Sims lets them know, after you killed Crazy K, 2 of his boys killed you. So I guess you didn't make it. So Ball was like, what you trying to say, that we dead, mother? And he was like, very. So Bulldog was basically like, if we dead, how are we in this funeral home with you? So this was one of the best lines in the movie. He was like, this ain't no funeral home. This ain't the Pentagon, neither. Well, I don't know if he said the Pentagon, but for whatever reason, I keep saying the Pentagon. And he basically let them know, welcome to hell. He was Satan. And the whole time, he was walking him through, telling them these stories, playing with them, if you will, but their end result was going down to hell, burning in flames. Whew. So I think you can take that story in so many different ways. I've had so many different discussions with people about this particular story. So I'm going to tell y'all a couple of stories, and I'm going to tell my opinion about that particular section. So I remember when I was in college, there was a class. I'm not going to say the class nor the location. You never know who watching. And when we were in class, we watched a video where a man had opened his door. Someone rung his doorbell. He opened the door. And when he opened the door, the person shot him point blank range. And this was a real, true video, true story. So, of course, when you watch the video, you were just like, because you see somebody's brains being blown out, basically. So, of course, we're all in shock. And there was a gentleman who was sitting next to me. And I will never forget this, ever. He was like, why y'all acting so shocked? He just another nigga dead. And I remember I was disgusted. I was disgusted. I was disturbed. I was just... And the teacher did not address what he said. She ended the class abruptly and basically sent him on his way. And I thought that could have been a really big learning opportunity, because for me, if you see our lives, meaning the lives of your brother, because you are your brother's keeper, if you see the lives of someone else as just another person dead, or in his words, another nigga dead, what does that say about you? And at that point, you can no longer blame white supremacy. You cannot blame anything for what you are willfully choosing to do and how you are willfully choosing to view yourself and your brothers. Because no, this person may not be your blood, but they are a part of us in so many different ways. So when he said that, I'm like, how can we ask others to value what we don't even value? And I was just in shock. When I was working at the airport, I spoke with a gentleman who was a part of a gang. Now, anyone who knows me knows I'm cool, calm, and collected until I'm not cool, calm, and collected, meaning I'm very opinionated. And he was, in many ways, from my opinion, glamorizing gang activity. So what I know of gang activity is that there is a lot of criminal activity, a lot of people get killed, and they lure people in on the premise that we are a family, even though once something happens, you need to take the fall for me. Right? So it don't matter if you're a 16-year-old kid and I'm a 29-year-old man. If I'm going to prison and you can get less of time than me, then you need to go on and take that fall. Which means that you don't actually care about my life. You only care about yourself. But I digress. So when I was talking to this guy, he started telling me how gangs give turkeys to people during the holidays, and you know, they volunteer and all this other stuff. And I was like, so gang shootings mean nothing. How you peddle drugs within the community means nothing. That how you are actively engaging in certain behaviors that is detrimental to the very people who are joining your organization, that means nothing, because y'all give turkeys during the holidays. Yeah, that makes sense. And he got upset with me. I still to this day don't know why, because if you have a rebuttal to that, then please, by all means, tell me. I'm open to hearing it. But there's no rebuttal to that, because this is facts. And if you have a difference of opinion, please put it in the comment section, because I could be completely wrong. I understand that gangs offer a specific level, a certain level of familiarity or a family environment. Like even what was that? What did Tupac say in that song? He passed away and I didn't cry because my anger wouldn't let me feel for a stranger. They say I'm wrong and I'm heartless, but all alone I was looking for a father, he was gone. I hung around with the thugs because even though they sold drugs, they showed a young brother love. That portion I get, where I'm not getting this type of love at home, but I'm getting it, that camaraderie within this gang and organization. But what are you having to give to get? What are you having to sell for you to end up having that? That's my whole thing. And I didn't mean to go on a rant about gangs, but that's just something that feels really deeply for me, like I feel deeply about. And I don't understand it. So when I see that story talking about Crazy K and how you see all the visions of all the videos of young men killing one another for the sake of a color, or you didn't give me my money so I'm gonna kill you, you wearing the wrong color so I'm gonna kill you, you said something I don't like so I'm gonna kill you, it makes no sense to me. So I could be wrong, but I think what Rusty was hinting at, Rusty and Darren were hinting at when they wrote this script was, we don't value ourselves, which gives other people permission not to value us in the first place. And we have adopted the very behaviors that we don't like, the very behaviors that others do that we say we don't like, but we've adopted it. Like, I thought it was very telling at the end when it was revealed that Bulldog and Ball and Stacks were the one who killed Crazy K. Ball said, another nigga dead. It's like, so is this your mission in life? What do you get out of this? This doesn't make you big and bad to kill somebody. And it was deep. And lastly, I think the twist in the Satanism part of you're going to hell is, you, at the end of the day, no matter who you are, we all have to atone for the decisions and the choices we make. We all, because we all are sinners, have to atone for what we've done in this life. Whether it be you talking about somebody behind their back, whether it be you killing somebody, whether it be you lying, I don't know. We all have to atone for it. So when you do and you stand before God, what are you gonna say? What are you gonna say? Are you gonna say it was another nigga dead? Are you gonna value the lives that are here on this earth? Are you gonna value the life that you have? So I thought that was deep because it made me question some things. I was like, Lord, I had to pray afterwards. I said, Jesus, I'm so sorry. Because no one wants to be at the gates of hell. There's the gates of heaven and the gates of hell. Where you want to be at, that's up to you. Well, it's up to the good Lord, but you know the decisions you choose to make on this earth. So overall, when I tell you Tales from the Hood is such a beautiful masterpiece. I have seen it so many times and I love it every single time because it's so relevant today. We have been talking about police brutality. We've been talking about perception. We've even been talking about voodoo, hoodoo, and everything else. We've been talking about the value of human life, gang activity, and decisions that we all choose to make. All of that is in this one film. All of this is encompassed in this one. But when I tell you, if you have the opportunity to watch it, please watch it. The last time I checked, it is on Tubi. Also, it should be on Prime Video. You may have to pay on Prime Video, but the last I checked, it was on Tubi. So go ahead and watch it if you can. Let me know what you think. Do you think I was being too harsh when I was talking about the gangs? Do you think that Clarence and the first story was wrong, or that he got exactly what he deserved? Do you think that Duke should have been able to move into the plantation, and whatever he felt should have been done within that plantation was okay. Let me know what you think in the comment section. I would greatly appreciate it. Again, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Guys, I am working my way up, trying to get better and better and more consistent, so please work with me in that. But I would love to hear from you in your comments. Please, please, please like, comment, and subscribe. So until next time, I want you to keep a smile on your face, keep a positive attitude, and be blessed. Peace.